A good Leil Shishi coming into Parashas Shlach. The streets of Borough Park are now wide open if anybody wants to have a race through bicycles. The Olam is going up to the country, and as 50 million people are sitting now and watching a debate, can't wait for President Biden to forget something or trip up on some word, and everyone's going to cheer Moeredik Simcha in their lives. Yay, and President Trump's going to lose his temper, and everyone. And there are Yidden here that are coming to learn our Chaim HaKadosh and to hear some Divrei Haskara, Ma Bein Benila Bein Chami, and that alone has to be a schus for Shmira, for Nachas, for Bracha. So many people, like I said, are on the way to the country going on a shlichus. And for some of us, the shlichus is to stay home. That's also a shlichus, right? Those who stayed home, and those who stayed to guard the Kalim, I think David HaMelech gave them an equal share of the booty. So, last Friday, last Leil Shishi, in the wildest of my imagination, that I didn't think that we would be in Avelis this week. Or my Rabbi Muvik, Mishkiach Zazang, you want to say, well, he was 99 years old, right? You have to understand that he was 99 years old, fully functioning, and people were Nehenim, Imenu, Eitzah, the Teshua, in an unbelievable way of Siyata D'Shmaya. Last Leil Shabbos, he came and was not feeling well, and the doctor told him that he should not go to the mikveh. So that's been pretty common over the last couple of years. And sometimes he comes into davening. Mashiach came into davening, sitting by his seat up front. Sometimes the Mashiach would sit by his seat in the back. And sometimes he would stay in the hallway leading into his house, not coming into the Beis Medrash at all. And the Mashgiach insisted on coming into the Beis Medrash. And more than just coming into the Beis Medrash, he insisted last Leil Shabbos Kodesh by Kabbalah Shabbos to come into the Beis Medrash and to move in a little bit between the people. And what he said was, if he couldn't toivel himself in a mikveh, he says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem, the Yidden are a mikveh, and if you sit surrounded by Yidden, that's also toiveling yourself in a mikveh. And that's why he insisted, to some degree, on coming in a little bit. So he came in to toivel himself between Yidden. It's very interesting that when we built the Beis HaMedrash, when we first built the Beis HaMedrash, we never built the Beis HaMedrash. I'm not sure. It was up to me. We would still be in the original shul on Udrich Avenue, but not much of a doer. So there was an issue with a neighbor who claimed, that they can't build into. Really was the shul's property, too close to his property, and there was no question that he had no right to stop the shul from building there. And the issue was then go to a din Torah and let a Rav paskin. And the Mashgiach said, absolutely not. Shemai Finish. We're not building into where it's causing a Yid Agnes Nefesh. Thank you, friend. As much as they said, we'll go to a Rav. If the Rav says no, is no. No, we're not going to a Rav. And you realize you're cutting maybe 30% of how large the Beis Medrash could be. And trust me, the Beis Medrash was not large enough. He said, we are not building where a Yid is going to have Agnes Nefesh. As things develop later on, that disputed area, whatever, it changed, the owners changed, and the Shtibel wound up buying another house nearby, and where they were able to build a mikveh for the Mashgiach was on that area, on that disputed area. In other words, had the original Beis Medrash been built over there, it would have been part of the shul. You can't exactly make a mikveh in the middle of a shul. Just that point that he didn't want to give a Yid Agnes Nefesh, and that was a very common thread in his life. There was a time when he was living in a pitsy apartment in Williamsburg, and there was an almana that was the landlord, and she came down, not long into the lease, and announced that she's raising the rent. The Rebbe very respectfully said that they have a lease for 2 years. They both signed on the lease. And she said, okay, so it was nicht. But she wasn't insistent. She said, okay, you're right, you have a lease. And when the Mashgiach came home and his Rebbetzin told him what happened, he told her, go upstairs right now and give her the raise starting this month. And Almana, yeah, but the lease, it's not a question of who's right or a question of who's wrong. It's a question of how you want to live your life. It's very hard to understand the hergish that he had for others. I want to give you an example. Sorry? Toiva Yasha, right? Sisa Toiva Yasha, Barrett says. There was Yochanan Zucker, friend of mine, son of my good friend, Yirmiyah Zucker, also a good friend. So the Meshgiach stayed in their apartment in Yerushalayim for one night or 2 nights. I don't know what the cheshbon was. It was Shabbos, the old city. I don't remember exactly what it was. And my friend Yirmiyah, moved his kids out of their bedroom to give the bedroom for the Meshgiach, his Rebbetzin. And the Meshgiach found out about it later. He was very upset that he stayed in a house where they made the kids go out of the room. Nish geferla, you know what I mean? It's not like the kids were sent out onto the street with pots collecting money. They were sleeping on the, probably wound up in their parents' room anyway, sleeping on the floor all over the place. But Lamaisa, so this little boy came to America with his father, and the Shgiach went over to him and said, "Remember that you gave me your bed?" He says, "Yeah, I do, I don't." Okay. And the next year he said to him, when he came back the next year, he used to come every Rosh Hashanah, he said, "You remember you gave me your bed?" He said, "Well, Shgiach keeps reminding me, so I remember." It wasn't the most traumatic event of my life, The next year the kid was bar mitzvah. And the Shgiach said to him, "You remember you gave me your bed?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you moichel me?" He was waiting for him to turn 13 to ask him to be moichel, because a cotton can't be moichel. But he reminded himself on the anniversary of it so that he doesn't forget. And afterwards he never brought it up further. But try to understand. There was one year, Simchas Torah, where they opened up the safe and the doors to the Aron Kodesh were locked. You know how it goes, there's always a gabbai that knows the number, and you throw the parechs behind you so no one can see, you put your hand over it, this gabbai, that gabbai, this gabbai. Everyone is turning, and the safe is not opening. Not opening, something jammed on the inside, and the door was not opening. I think they should call a guy, a locksmith, back and forth and back and forth. He tried, everyone tried. They tried, the kids climbed on top, they thought they can climb. Bunish Gehov, and that door was not opening. Short of getting a crowbar and forcing it open, the door was not going to open. So, we borrowed Sifrei Torah from other Bati Midrashim. It's pretty embarrassing. And pink that year, there were a few Echnasa Sifrei Torahs. There was beautiful Sifrei Torah inside, and they remained locked in the safe. And we borrowed Sifrei Torah from neighboring shuls. It's interesting. So by Nilas Achag, everyone was waiting to hear what the Meshgiach is going to say. And he said, this was his take on it. He said that all the Sifrei Torah in the Aron Kodesh were kosher Sifrei Torah. I think then there was a few Echnasa Sifrei Torahs, and they were all brand new Sifrei Torah. And he said there was not one pasuk Sifrei Torah. He said in most shuls and Simchas Torah, you take out Sifrei Torah. Some of the Sifrei Torah have gartels around them. They're still have to be checked. The pasuk, the kosher Sifrei Torah, everything goes out. He says the Eibush still likes when you dance with the kosher Sifrei Torah and the pasuk Sifrei Torah. The Eibush still wants you should dance with the regular Yidden and the pasuk Yidden all together. If only kosher, the Eibush says no, stay in the Aron Kodesh. Stay where you are. That's the way he looked at it. And Shgiach, Zchon Levracha, had an idea what a shachrus should look like, or how long a shachrus should take. He always quoted the shita of the Balatanya, who says that there's the din in halacha that if you're mafsik, and they ligmar eskula, if you stop long enough that it would take somebody else, that's your normal time to finish the davening, so that's the hefsik. It's a considerable hefsik in halacha. So the Tanya says, how long should it take to say Psuki Psika de Zimra? Half an hour. Not whole shachris. Psika de Zimra, half hour. Which Gich always said, so what's Psika de Zimra has to be half an hour. And not just a half hour of sitting there and klutzing, but you got to give it all you got. And Meshgiach had this unbelievable blend, because that's who he was. He nashed from everybody. He grew up in America in a wasteland. He found the Moshe Rebbe, and he found later Yochanan Stoliner, and he kind of put everything together, blended it all into a harmony. So basically, his idea of a davening would be the Stolen and Nusach through Psika de Zimra up until Baruch Hu, where everyone is very actively on a high octane involved. And then his idea was from Baruch Hu and on, he took a turn away from where it goes right. They go right to with a regular Nusach. Then it should be with a Baltfila, with a Kelodain, and his Ahava Rabba. He always that started in the last 10 years. That came later. So there's not enough going into the Ahava Rabba. Your whole day depends on the Ahava Rabba, right? The Nesiv said if he didn't say Ahava Rabba with Kavana, he didn't say Shir that day. And the Baal Shem Tov says that the reason the Mashiach didn't come yet is we don't put enough effort into Ahava Rabba, so Ahava Rabba became major. Nishmas is major. Az Yashir is major, and basically no shaila about the half hour of Sikha Dezim. We're long past the half hour. But from Baruch and on, it had to be like more Nagina and more beautiful and more something that is Ma'oires Halev. And that's how the Besmedrash davened. And over the years, the larger the oilam becomes, of course, the longer the davening takes. But I remember the Mashgiach when he first moved to Borough Park, and there was no minyan yet in the morning, B'Shachris. And believe it or not, I saw him a few times davening in the Sfadish Shul. Now, mind you, the Sfadish Shul then was especially in that part of Borough Park, was the only factory Shachris minyan. There was no Tush wasn't there yet, Mimkach wasn't there yet, Bubba wasn't there yet, Krasna wasn't there yet. There's nothing. In those years, it was Sfadish Shul was the only factory minyan for Shachris. Shem Shabbos didn't have factory minyan for Shachris. And the Mashgiach davened there. Yes, he davened in the Sfadish Shul. And every davening, I watched this, was 4 minyan. As he started brachis with 1 minyan, Psika de Zimra, he transferred to a different minyan. By Berachas Kriya Shema, he transferred to a different minyan. By Shmon Esrei, he transferred to a different minyan. And basically, he started with minyan number 1 and ended with minyan number 4. And that's how he davened. And the way he davened was exactly the way he davened in the Moshe Yisrael 50 years later. He never changed from the way he thought that, to him, Shach was like a chassan going to his chuppah. As a matter of fact, over the years in the Moshe Yisrael, Rabbi said, how you daven so long? Oh my goodness. But it's very interesting. Every day there are chassanim there on the day of their chuppah, they come daven there. Reminds me of the story. The guy that davened in the Reform Shul, Chas v'Shalom, I'm not calling other shuls Reform Shuls, but I'm just as a joke, okay? The guy davened in the Reform Shul, on his yard side, he wanted to say Kaddish in the Orthodox Shul. He said, well, he's dealing it up there, he needs a shul that's up there, right? So, Chas v'Shalom, not suggesting that other shuls are. But all of a sudden, it came the whole issue with Tachnan, that we never say Tachnan. Legally, there's always a chassan there. So it came to different shittas about chassan b'yom chipasi, on the day of his chuppah, when the chuppah is. But really for the Mashgiach, every day was his chuppah. He valued every day of his life. He took it as a gift, and every shachris was there. So you know that over the past couple of years, after the Mashgiach had his heart surgery, so he started going to Florida in the summer. And that was, he couldn't stand go to Florida, so there was a benefactor, Tyre Yid Avishal, since the Zank is in Stark. And he went all out for the Mashgiach to make sure that he's comfortable there. And at one point, the Mashgiach said, in all due respect, I cannot come. And he said, why? He said, I have to have my shachris with my minyan. And he said, we're gonna make it work. And he went so far as buying another house next to his house, next to the house that he had for the Mishgiach, turned that house into a shul, and built in the back of the house a dormitory. And they had a rotation of Yingalite that kept going down to make sure that there's always a minyan for Shachris, and that there's a minyan on Shabbos, and Matzigishtel, that nobody went hungry over there. And it was a fascinating thing to watch. But it was very clear, without his davening, he can't go. It doesn't make sense what he has to do. And the davening there was exactly the way the davening was in Emunas Yisrael. When we first built the Beis Medrash, so obviously the little strapped for money, or more than a little strapped for money. So someone had a Moiridik idea with Sham Shul Zilin that they sell permanent seats on the Mizrach wall, or up front in the Yoren Kodesh. In this particular case, would be next to the Meshgiach. People wanted to sit. There were a lot of Ashirim that were willing to pay a lot of money for those seats. A lot of money, as in a lot of money. In a shul that was desperate for money because contractors were banging away. And the Meshgiach said, absolutely not. He insisted that the whole area around him, up front, basically the box seats, the VIP seats, are for the Bacharim. They're the ones that he's a Meshgiach. His job is to be mechanech them to daven, and they're the ones that get those seats. Explain to him, Bacharim, they don't even pay full price for the mikvah. Like Bacharim, I'm going to pay $15, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 for a seat. He said, that's the way it is. Okay? Toiveling between Yidden. The Mishkiach, so certain aliyahs they don't sell on Yom Tov, and the Mashiach gets the aliyah, which is a very common thing. And then someone had an idea that instead of not sell, let's say on Yom Tov, Shish Ki Shabbos, they don't sell the aliyahs. Let's say on Yom Tov, sell whatever that aliyah is. So they would, why not sell it and say whoever buys it has the schus to be mechabed the Mishkiach with the aliyah. And the people that came up with the idea anticipated, knowing who would buy it, that it would probably earn the shul about $20,000 extra in income a Yom Tov. And the Mishgiach heard about it. He said, absolutely not. He can't stand that someone's buying him something for $10,000. He knows his money's going to the shul. He won't take the aliyah if they do it. He asked Mechila from the Gaboim. He said he won't take the aliyah if they do it, and that's how it was. That's it. They just didn't sell that aliyah. He never viewed himself as the Rav of the shul. He once said goodbye to the island before he left. He said, I'm not going to be here for a few weeks. Okay, the bus will have to manage without the bus driver. That's what he said. He considered himself the bus driver. When they made an apartment for him next door to the shul, he insisted on paying rent to the shul. Why should the shul lose out? So they bought the whole house for him. He said he's not moving in unless he's paying rent. And to this day, he paid rent I don't know exactly how much, but he paid rent every single month to the shul. He paid his dues to the shul. He never, ever got a salary from the shul. He always said, I'm here. When they had to, when he was getting older, he had some balancing issues, but he always sat in a regular chair like this chair. The camera can see. A regular shul chair. They refused to have like a special Rebbeisha chair. So finally they said to him, okay, but we'll get you a chair with handles on both sides. Because the Maaseh was, when you get older, your balance is a little bit off. So he said, no, he doesn't want a different chair than anyone else. He said, but it's sakana. So he said he's masking on one condition. They made a cheshbon, but I think then he was in his 80s. They made a cheshbon that there's 4 or 5 people in the shul that are in their 80s. All 5 people get such chairs. So he's masking because then all the people over 80 have such a chair. No, his chairs haven't, and that's how it was. They had 5 such chairs. They're still there, all 5 chairs. People fight over it. And it was for the older. But later on, when he
4 p.m.
It was mamish more of a sakana, so he had a chair. No, not a very rebbesh chair, but just a chair that would secure him. He was always teveya the oilam that shachar should be better. And I remember someone coming over to me and says, who says there's no wolfson bisman hazeh? Someone said it to me earlier this year, Chanukah time. Said, here's a man, 99 years old, who is there every single morning at 7:30 for shachris. He didn't have korech to stand, but he sat like davening away for a almost 2-hour shachris on a regular given day. The joke is always someone came and said, where are they up to? He says, Baruch Sha'amar. The guy says, Baruch or Sha'amar. Tell me exactly where they're up to. Right? We try to picture this. Right? You ever come late for Shachris? Try to picture someone 99 years old. Never mind all the 50 years, 60 years before that. Because it's like the day of your chuppah. You don't miss Shachris. Including being there the last day of his life. Shabbos morning. He was there in the morning. And he was there through Psikat the Zimra. By Nishmas, he was, whatever his Nishmas was the height of his Shabbos. He left after Kedusha. After the singing of Mom Karmcha. And when Shabbos by the Mishgiach was not Pashat. He would prepare his lech Thursday night. Everything was set for Shabbos. It had to be Thursday night. Why? Because Friday he has to prepare for Shabbos. So what's called preparing for Shabbos? No. The preparing for Shabbos is preparing for Shabbos. There's the physical preparing for Shabbos, and then there's waiting for Shabbos to come. Learning what he learns from it. That was a separate thing. So that he has to do on Friday. But think about it, before your chuppah, right? I want all the technicals to be taken care of the day before, so on the day of the chuppah you have time to say Tillim, and that's what it was. That's what every Shabbos was. The Gemara says about Tanoim and Amiroim that sat there waiting for Shabbos. You saw it. Him and the Rebbetzin, that's how their lives were. And someone told me that this person, he was taking care of the Rebetzin's cell phone. He has a cell phone store. So she needed a new phone. So he called her Friday morning, or maybe it was even Thursday evening. And he said he's setting up her new phone, whatever, setting up a new plan. Can he have her social security number? She goes, what? It's so close to Shabbos. I can't even think about such things now. It was Thursday night. It's nish. He called back Sunday morning. He said, your social security number. She rattled it right off. It wasn't like she had to go look it up. But it was like, not now, not before Shabbos. Okay? Before Shabbos is something else. It's half of the fellas. This is what I heard today. I don't know. I don't vouch for the authenticity of this. But they said the blood tests came back that they took right before he was lifted. And they said that there was no oxygen in the blood. They said there were no liver functions at all. He said, technically speaking, he should have been in a coma the last 48 hours, at least. And he was fully functional. Shabbos Friday night, he sat with his family and said Divrei Torah, and he was in shul Shabbos morning. Even up Shabbos afternoon, he laid down, he got up, and he was learning. He learns Tanya Shabbos. He did everything he was doing. It was with his full machshava and concentration. So it's like the Eibush gave him this gift, besides for the unbelievable clarity of mind till the last second. But another Shabbos that it's like his neshama outlasted his guf. His guf was gone, but his neshama kept it going. Al pi derech hateva, there was no guf there. That's what the doctor said. It doesn't make sense even where we were. And if you think about this, take it a step further, that he left the middle of Shalosh Shudas. He didn't want to go until after Shabbos. He left the middle of Shalosh Shudas, and he reminded himself he didn't bench because he was sitting by Shalosh Shudas. So they called the Dayan. The Dayan said, whatever the circumstances are, he shouldn't bench them. And not long afterwards, he was nifted. He was alert to the last second. It's like, Shalosh Shudas was like Nila every week. So technically, and he always stretched it late into Matzah Shabbos, as many wives of the Ministry Israel people will testify to. He came home very late. Because it was only to stretch the Shabbos, push the Shabbos into brings the bracha, the Taisa Shabbos. And he was nifter mamish in this time period, which technically was still Shalosh Shudas, right? He didn't bench yet. As if that was the time, Rava de Rava. I said the story yesterday. That Friday night, to his family, he spoke about Havas Chaverim, how Chaverim themselves can be machasik themselves. They weren't sure what he meant. And afterwards they began to think, So he said a story that the Rav Shitzerov's father once was nifter. He was a very tough, he was a Midas Hadin. And his mother was also Midas Hadin. And once a week, she would call in her son, and she would give him musar from top to, she would rank him. And he stood there listening to his mother. Yeah. Everyone knew that happens. And once, a chassid of the Rav Shitzarov, his name was Cheskel, he hid in one of the closets. He wanted to hear his Rebbe's mother giving his Rebbe musar. And she's going on and on and on. And finally she says, and what kind of talmidim do you have? What are you teaching them? How can you compare yourself to your father? So the Rav Shitzarov said, Mama, my father had big tzaddikim talmidim. I have people like Cheskel hiding in the closet. I have to do what I can do, for them, where I am. The Mashgiach had his open heart surgery on Shabbos. Well, didn't have the surgery on Shabbos, but it was right after Shabbos. So he asked right before Shabbos if they can take the oxygen out of his nose. Yes, no, doctors, maybe, why not? I asked him why he was so insistent. He said, because the oxygen is coming from a tank. It's not the Shabbos air. It was put in before Shabbos. He wants to breathe the Shabbos air. He's in a hospital. What Shabbos air is there? He felt the Shabbos air. He asked that he was just right after heart surgery, he's still wearing the hospital clothes. He said they put on these compression socks, something they do to help the stimulation. He asked whoever was tending to him to please take it off and put it back on. Should put it on the covered Shabbos, and also to make sure they put on the left one first, to put on the right one first. And I think the next week he already asked that they bring him his Shabbos socks. The ones he had special Shabbos begodim for every separate thing. The other thing is interesting. He never allowed for a minyan in the hospital because they didn't want to make a tumult. But I will tell you a story that my friend said to me, the Baron Kovitz. I think he said this story is a beautiful story. He took care of the Mashgiach a long time, up until, up and including the last couple of years. It was his Einikul, Shlomi Rosenberg, who really did Mamash Meister Nevish himself for his grandfather. But he said he was in Florida, Mashgiach had fallen, he broke his hip once when he was in Florida, and he came in for surgery, and he was with the Mashgiach in the room, and they called him to the front desk, that is this Aaron, they called him to the front desk, if I have the story straight, to fill out some paperwork, and he started leaving. Mashgiach said, don't leave the room. Don't leave the room. So he said, really, there's no shaila in yichud because so many people are coming, but I have my chumras when it comes to yichud, and please don't leave the room. There was a nurse in the room. So he told the mashgiach, it's a man nurse. He said, oh, okay. He didn't know that. He didn't look to see whether it was a man or he didn't know. He thought it was he didn't look. I'm talking about today, Taka don't know. But in those days, you still knew. You understand what I'm saying? The only way you didn't know was by not looking, and he was not looking. And then here, that happened very, very often. If he slept a little bit longer, Shabbos afternoon, so he was machmer according to the shitas that you should have to say Birchas HaTorah. There are some shitas if you sleep, but you have to say Birchas HaTorah afterwards. How could you say Birchas HaTorah? So what he would do is, if he had a suffix, he had this thing with the Bishop Rosengarten, those things, which have a fischel. He was the same age as the Mashgiach. He was a Kohen, and there was this little thing between them. He would sometimes tell the Gabbai, give him Kohen. Okay? And he gave him Kohen, and Reb Itcha knew to be moitzi the Mashgiach with Asher Bachabana with Birchas HaTorah. So when the word got out, somebody asked Mashiach, why don't you just ask for an aliyah? He says, Chas v'shalom, I never asked for an aliyah. Why should I? No. As if to say, I should ask for an aliyah? He's up to give. The kohen, I could tell him which kohen to give, but I should ask him for an aliyah. That didn't really redefine the word anova. I can't explain it. In certain ways, he was so powerful. He never let him touch the davening. And he had certain bald feelings. When he felt that it was Oymen al Perik, he was mamash with Mesiras Nefesh. It was Noiki within his heart. With everything else, particularly when it came to his own covet, nothing. So I want to tell you a story that I don't think anyone else knows, except for those that heard the story from. I was once honored by a dinner of a big moshe. The reason I was honored was because it's me, and they thought they'll make money on me. They didn't, okay? They weren't honoring me. They were honoring, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. But they thought they were going to make money if they honored me. And they had asked the Mashiach to come there by the dinner. Okay. Mashiach's sitting there. And part of the way this thing works is they were going to give me this, it was before Pesach, they were going to give me this silver wine bottle with my name engraved on it. I think it cost them more than what they made on the dinner. But anyway, and whoever the MC was, I thought I'm going to fall off his chair. He wanted the Mashgiach to stand up and give me the wine bottle in front of the camera. Are you out of your mind? But before I had a chance to say anything, the Mashgiach stood up and held the wine bottle. And I was like, I thought I wanted to crawl 10 feet under the ground. And he's standing there holding the wine bottle, and they're like, and I hear the Mashgiach saying to himself again with a smile, not with an anger, not with a, it's like, Yecheskel ben Buzi, Yecheskel ben Buzi, Yecheskel ben Buzi. Now, Yecheskel HaNavi was a Navi. Why was he Zeichat his Nevi'as when my father used to always share this medrash with me? Because he went through Bizyonis. He went to ask people. He wasn't embarrassed to ask even younger people than he is. So I once asked him about it. I said, why did the Mashgiach do it? He said, Bizyonis? Most beautiful thing in the world. You know what Bizyonis are? He says, you know what a schus it is? He says, you understand what it is? I once had a Rebbe in the 10th grade. He said, if you would understand what Bizyonis are, he said, I would go out and buy it. I picked up my hand and said, Rebbe, I'll give it to you for free. They got me a trip to the principal. Okay, in any event. So Friday night, I'm once standing outside, me being the klutz that I am, and it was the last night for Kiddush Levana, and it was Friday night. I'm looking up the Levana, I said, what do I do? It's last night, Friday night, I'm Kiddush Levana, and I don't have the siddur, and I can't ask anyone to bring me out the card, because, there was no Erev then. Even if I used the Erev, I don't, but there was no Erev. So someone said, and Mashgiach passed by, he came out of shul because he was talking to someone. And he saw me standing on the corner. He says, why are you standing here? And I'm like, So it wasn't Mechadish Levana yet, and it's the last night. So I said, it was the last night, then you're Mechadish even Friday night. I said, oh, okay. They said, so what's the problem? No, just waiting, I don't know. He said, because you don't know the Nusach Bal Peh? No. says, let's say it together. And he started Baruch, yeah, Ata. And he Asher b'mamara, yes. Baruch Hashem, the minhag is on Friday night. You only say the bracha. You don't say the whole Tippel Aleim and Masa V'Fachan Shalom Aleichem Aleichem Shalom. I would have totally gone through the floor. You know what I mean? That's how he was. I can't explain it. He had an unbelievable chavivus to Eretz Yisrael, not to the political aspect of Eretz Yisrael, but to the land, to the Kedushas Haaretz. And he said, in many of his Torahs, he said, we all have, especially in these parshiyas, so we all have a Yerusha in Eretz Yisrael, right? Every one of us has a Yerusha in Eretz Yisrael. You don't know where it is, but you have it. Yeshua Yashim did. He gave it to your grandfather. And it goes down the line. There's a Yerusha in Eretz Yisrael. And we draw our whole chiyas from it. Mishkiach always used to say there's Olam, Shana, Nefesh, and our chelik and Torah is directly connected to the chelik Yeshua, to the chelik in Eretz Yisrael, and that Yeshua couldn't take over certain parts of Eretz Yisrael until a sealed ben Kanas took it back la halacha. So for many years he was in the summer in Yerushalayim, first in the old city, and then they convinced him to move. So I was once with him in the old city, and it was later with the Arabs, nothing new, right? And Friday night we were walking back to our Echsanya, and we were walking by Shar Shechem. And even though there were a lot of people, there wasn't reckless. But someone said to the Mishkiach, there are like safer ways to get to where we are, more secure ways. He insisted on walking that way. We later asked him why. He said as he's walking, everyone that sees him, the soldiers and the police, they all go Shabbat Shalom, Kvod Rav, you know. He said, and they're yoitz in the midst of Kiddush D'Oraisa with that. He said, I'm going to be mezaka these people with Kiddush D'Oraisa. If I walk away the other side, how could those people lose out on their mitzvahs? He had a special love for the Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael. He once told someone, and I'll tell you soon when he told it to us. Remember the old yarmulkes had this little button on top? Not a pom-pom, like the Shluf Kappel hang, a little button. In that little button, he had a little stone from Eretz Yisrael. Always in the place. Now the Mishkiach held very much that a Beis Medrash should be white. It should be white. White is lechtig, white is ma'or, simchas achayim, white is bracha. As a matter of fact, in the 14th Avenue Shtivel, they bought the panels, so it was off-white, and Mishkiach was upset. He said, the next time you buy, I'm coming along with you to the lumber yard. Okay? So Lamaisa, the next time it happened was the big shul, and everything was white, and then somebody donated the marble. So they brought the Mishkiach samples of the marble. And he had two little pieces, square samples. One was white as white can be, snow white. The other was yellow. You know what the shtiba looks like? It's more yellowish. We were sure it's a no-brainer. He's going to take the white one, but just as a courtesy, he said he wants to see it before we order it. And he looked at the two. And it's really he's so makbid on white that there are svarim shanks at the back of the Beis Medrash. It was a whole issue. He didn't want them there. He wanted them off to the side in a special room. Shouldn't take away the white. Well, my dad gave him an answer, but they're beige, light beige. So he looked at the two stones, and I thought for sure it's going to be the white one, right? What's the shaila? And he said, where's the white one made? So he said, the white one comes from Italy someplace. And the yellow ones? So he said, whoever was taking care of it said, the yellow ones are from Chevron. So he said, the yellow ones. And I think there's a tremendous lesson over there, because his chavivas of the land, it wasn't akshonis. In his chavivas for Eretz Yisrael, he was mevater on something which is this always medish. When I was in camp, we were in Camp Tervadas. We really believed when he was finished with Tisha B'Av, Mashiach is coming. You can't imagine. It was everything that happened in the world. He analyzed the news, and it was always Mashiach is coming, Mashiach is coming. He said, remember the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, all the Torahs of Mashiach is coming, the Iranian hostages, Mashiach is coming. It's very interesting. The last event since October 7th, he didn't. He didn't say. He was the Olam, and he was saying the Gula, and the Eibishter loves Yidden, you know. He said a lot of different things, but he didn't stress that much. I don't know exactly what that means. He should know his apartments, up until the apartment was such a modest apartment. He had a big Svarim collection. His Svarim shack was basically boards. He spent no money on himself, nothing. He said when years ago he was a Malamed, he once said he got enough money for Vasa and Kasha. but you have to supply your own kasha. You could buy the water. But he always said, there should always be money, always give your wife money. It should be a rachvus now, especially before Shabbos. That's already included. It's something that's part of it. I remember once that this person ran into shul because there was a shul next door, and the kids were throwing wet paper towels into the window of the shul next door. It's Indian al Kabbalah. I can't explain it. That Indian doing it. Some of them were my kids. One of the Gaboyim came with one of my kids once. I remember he was 10 years old. And he said, take him home. Take him. He was holding him up. Take him home. I said, you take him. Later he took him for a son-in-law. You never know. You have to be careful what you say. You should know. So I remember once somebody came running in the middle of Shalosh. This is so serious. You know how to say a word. Somebody came running in the middle of Shalosh from next door, and he goes, I want a gabbai. I want a gabbai now. I don't know what the kids were doing. It's quiet. No one says a word. And he just said, Gabbai is Rosh Tevis Ana B'Kayach G'til Asimelech. It was quiet. That's how he looked at the world. Okay, what do I have to hear now? Where am I? He used to say, why does he go to Eretz Yisrael? Because he used to say, I have a mother here. That's why I come every year. His mother was Mama Rachel. That was the mother that he had, that he used to say. So Zaktar Chaim HaKadosh, in terms of the Meraglim, the Beis Minei Rigulheim, there are two kinds of Meraglim. There's no question, we're going in. Meraglim, I'm saying, how do we go in? We're going to check it out, how we should go in. Then there's a Rigul Klali, a different kind of Meraglim. Where the spies have to make a determination whether we could invade the country or not. So there's Meraglim that go to see if we should invade. There's Meraglim that go to see how we should invade. So the Archaim HaKadosh says, they fooled Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe didn't want to send them. And they said, no, we're going to see where they hid the money. We're only going to check out how we should do it, not if we should do it. So the Genevas das Moshe. It wasn't how, it wasn't if, it was when. Mashiach was coming. There was no question about it. Right? Why does it say Vayelchu Vayavoyu ben Meraglim? Should say Vayavoyu. So Rashi says Lahakash Alichas Leviyasan Mabiyasan Ve'etzara. Says the Rechaim HaKadosh La'akar Mehem Shlichas Mitzvah. When they went right away with the wrong attitude. They weren't going with a love for Eretz Yisrael. And there it only picked up momentum as it was going. I remember once I asked the Mashgiach, I had yahrzeit that Shabbos. I love davening. When I have yahrzeit, it's, I get daven. Musaf, they allow me to daven. That's it. That's where it stops. And the kids come over afterwards and they come to my house. We're kids at yahrzeit. My father's yahrzeit was Boy Bayan. And somebody asked me to come for a Shabbos with Russians, with Russian Yidden from Russia, Ukraine, I remember exactly what it was. And I wasn't sure what to do. And I asked the Mashgiach, I said, I love staying in shul. I love my kids coming over. I love davening in the Manas Yisrael. And I don't know, what should I do? So he said, I can't answer you. You have to figure out what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to do. And very often that was my answer. Figure out what the Eibishter wants of you. I said, but how do I know? I said, you have to figure it out. So I would figure it out, and I say, I really want to stay home. And there was no money here in this Shabbos that I was going to, right? So I went, because I thought that's what the Eibishter wants me to do. Father used to deal a lot with Russian Yidden. I once asked him, because I was involved in a Shalom Bayis thing, and I said to the Mashgiach, how much of my time do I have to give for this? And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean my time? Time is not yours. Time is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How could you say my time? And I realized in the car of where he is, that he believes every second of his life is a gift of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He believes that's how it is. But that's how he lived his life. I once asked him, I wanted to quit a certain job. And he said, what are you going to do then for betachin, for money? I said, betachin. So could I quit? He said, I don't know your level of betachin. In other words, he would tell me, no, betachin doesn't work. Betachin works, but I don't know how much betachin you have. And in a similar vein, I once asked him, I wasn't feeling well, I was in camp, I was a bacher, and I asked him if I can go to the mikveh, because one time I could table myself. Well, Shem Tov says, if you table yourself one time, there's a shmirah. So he said to me, the fact that you're asking is a symbol you don't believe in it. you really believe in it, why are you asking? So once you're asking, you're slipping in it, so you can. Then he called me back and he said, if you're not feeling well, you have fever, how does that affect somebody else using the mikveh? Well, Shem Tov was only talking about you, he wasn't talking about someone else. You have to ask a different shayla. One of the things, he was moshe nefesh himself for different things. His esrig was like, till he got his esrig. And he held on to it the entire year, till his wife made esrig jelly out of it. It was like the esrig was behind. And a man once came over to me and he said, a friend of mine, he said, my wife is going through treatments. She's going for her first treatment tomorrow. And she told me she would love to hold the Mashgiach's esrig. I said, I said, ask him. I said, I can't ask him. You could ask him. He said, her treatments are tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and it was 12 o'clock at night. I said, I think he'll understand. And he knocked on the door, and I don't know what happened then. And 10 minutes later, he knocked on my door, and he showed me the esrig. Mashgiach not only gave him the esrig, he gave him the esrig with his case. He had like a special case, you should hold it the entire time. It's mine until I have to give it away. He would be busy with his Chanukah lech. Rosh Chodesh Kislev. All his Chanukah lech were lit because he was measuring to make sure that all the wicks are perfect and that it burns well. And this is what it is. It's very interesting. After his heart surgery, whenever he had a medical thing, he dropped the gatekeeper and he made himself more available for others. Why? With the understanding that if the Eibishter gave me this time, extra time in my life, so it belongs to him. So how could I do it for myself, right? The Eibishter gave me this time, so it belongs to him. The Avodas Yisrael says, the school of Fushleim mentioned Avodas Yisrael, that Moshe was very worried about Yeshua more than anyone else. That's why he davened for him. Why? Because Yeshua loved Moshe more than anyone else. Yeshua went out of his mind when the elder made that said Nevuah. So he was scared that Yeshua would be dragged into the Meragla. With the Cheshbon, let me keep Moshe Rabbeinu alive. Mashgiach always says that the Rizal says, Meragla Mata. Yosef said to the brothers, Meragla Mata. Because the Rizal says the Meraglim came along with the Meraglim. The Shvatim came along with the Meraglim. That Ruvain came along with Shevet Ruvain. Shimon went along with the Nasi B'Shevet Shimon. The Zerah Shimshon says Levi came along with Yeshua. That's why Moshe was mispal with him, because it was my Zayda. So Mashgiach always says that, when you're faced with an Asayim, there's koiches and shemayim that are coming to help you. Your Zaydas are coming to help you. But you have to daven. If you don't daven, you don't get it. So he told me a story that he was a little boy. He was together with the Mashiach. He said the story is an older year, goes back 70 years ago. Yes, 70. He was a little boy, and they were like in a hotel/bungalow colony for Shabbos. Sunday afternoon, him and his friends went for a walk in the woods, even though his mother said, don't go. Never say to a kid, don't you go into those woods. Gave him an idea, wasn't it, right? And they were lost. So they were crying bitterly, they were lost, and they were wandering, and they heard someone humming. And they got to an opening in the forest, and Mashgiach was sitting there by a table, and he was learning. They didn't want to disturb him, they just sat by a tree. They said after a while, he took out a harmonica, and played like his mudges and nigunim, stopped, opened up the sefer, started learning again. And they watched him. He said, we watched him for a few hours. We were just, I don't know what their parents were thinking, but they were so, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. And the Shkiach had 3 pairs of tzitzis on call. He also had unbelievable chumras with tzitzis. 3 pairs of tzitzis. One had a little mark on the corner, that was for Shabbos, because everything has special Shabbos. One said Ches, it's for Choil, for weekdays. One had a M, the letter M on it. And whoever saw it, what is that? Until someone took him to the doctor, and he went into his room and changed it. And he explained that when he goes to a doctor, he puts on the special tzitzis because it shouldn't be a chil Hashem. He has a special pair of tzitzis to make sure it's nice and neat. This is how Oisri Cheshmet he was. So I was just saying that the Archaim HaKadosh says, why did the Eibishter make that chelas comes from dipping it in the dam of the chalazim? Then we don't know what a chalazim is. Why couldn't the Eibishter just make blue things? So he says it's to show us that the yam is doimel rekia, and the rachmim comes from the yam. And there's mysterious nefesh, just confusing. In his last shmuz, that he gave publicly in the Beis Medrash, was Lag BaOmer. Shavuos was fully active and didn't talk. didn't give a shmuz. The last time he spoke to the people was Lag BaOmer, this Lag BaOmer, and Mashgiach said like this. This that the people can't go to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is a big maila. Because Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is going to say, where is everyone? He's going to... And this that there's big hadlokos in Yerushalayim, he said Rav Shimon Bar Yochai originally wasn't Yerushalayim. All the Tanoim were in Yerushalayim. They ran away from the Romans. They ran up north. The Sanhedrin went to God. He said, this is just the Eibushin starting, that it's coming back. He says, Rav Shimon is going to say, no, this can't go on. And his last public words in the shul was, by that Lag BaOmer Suda, was the last thing that he officially said to the army. He said it to Shabbos Friday night to everyone. The last things he said was, I have to leave now. You stay here, but Sulzam b'simcha. Those were his words. Those are the last words that he said publicly to the Olam. You stay here, but I have to leave, and this is where I'm going. It says, Vayas kolei v'sa'am. Right? So, Moshe says, but it didn't work. And Kol got such a reward for this because, he got Malchus based David. It didn't work. The Meraglim shot up again. He said, the Moshe says, first of all, he made a dent in what the Meraglim did. The Meraglim had to start their propaganda again. Second of all, it teaches us, pass or fail is irrelevant when it comes to Kiddush Hashem. You try. The Eibusher does his. The Shgiach always said, Pasha Shlach, everyone goes to the country or stays here or wherever you're going, because it means Shlichus. Everyone in this world has a Shlichus. This is where we are. I want to tell you a story. That a friend of mine made a bris, and Mashiach was a sandik, and he went into him afterwards. The story goes back many years ago. And he wanted a bracha, and when the Mashiach gave a krechts, he said, he took me for a sandik, but I'm sorry to tell you, it was an empty sandik. He said, why? Because there was a younger man that was in the Beis Medrash, there was a terrible accident that week. And his wife and two of the children were struggling for their lives. And Mashgiach said right before the Sandakas, I said, Rebbeinu Shalom, I give away all my mitzvahs, all my schusim for them. He said, so I feel bad because it was an empty Sandakas. He gave me the Sandak. I think when you give away all your schusim, it's even more for someone else. Right after my chuppah. So I was a bacher, and a bacher has, cuckoo things. And I said, when I said it, Riyat Mekadeshesli, I don't think I was thinking what I was saying. Because the photographer was like, I wasn't thinking what I was saying. So maybe I'm not married. So after the chuppah, I went over to him. He's like, what now? He said, I said it, Riyat Mekadeshesli. I don't know, I wasn't thinking what I was saying. He says, no, you're a sukkah, but I say, Indian, the circumstances are enough, it's fine. Don't worry, you're married, don't worry about it. I said, I didn't even know if I realized where I was. And he got very serious. He said to me, fischel. I said, yeah? He said, go to the pictures, okay? It's like, at one point you have to know when you're crossing the thing and get on with life. Get on with life. His answers weren't etched in stone. He understood who was asking the question. And it was always very, very different kind of an answers. When he had heart surgery, he came out of the surgery, right before the surgery, the doctor said, these are the risks, this is what else, and afterwards you're going to be on a respirator. He said, I want to know one thing, was before Purim, will I be able to be by the Sudas Purim? The cardiologist said, he's doing this surgery 30 years. People ask all kinds of questions. No one ever asked him, after the heart surgery, can I come to the Sudas Purim? So Purim was his life. He felt that was in the science. I should say one last thing. I know it's late. It says this, the Mashiach said like this, Asar Nisyanis, the Avram Avinu had 10 Nisyanis. The Yidden in the Midbar had 10 Nisyanis. They all correspond to each other. Avram Avinu's main Nisayan was the Nisayan of the Akedah. The Mashiach said, what was the Nisayan of the Akedah? More than anything else, the Nisayan of the Akedah was Vayaris and Makam Erachak. Avram lost all of his madregas. He felt no closeness to Hashem. He, in the Mashgiach's words, it was the greatest Nisayan of his life, and he felt nothing. And he came to Har Miriah. Avram felt nothing. He had kashas. It doesn't make sense. And Avram said, okay, who says I have to feel? Ekev Ashashama Avram B'Kaili. Ekev is Ikusa de Mashiach. That's the chet of the Meraglim. You feel nothing, but you move on. Even if you feel nothing, you move on. And I was thinking to myself, like, what would we do now? What would any one of us do now to have one more Shabbos with the Mashgiach? Like, if I would have known last week was the last Shabbos, I would have been on time for davening, it would have been more, right? We would have watched every move. And I was thinking to myself, if we can look at every Shabbos this way, Why do we have to think afterwards that I can only have one more Shabbos? If we think this is the Shabbos, then his life dream of bringing the Geula will be here. And now that he's doing it up there, and if we can try doing it down here, then Bez Hashem Yisbarach, maybe we can actually see it.
You've just experienced another Torah class.